Hi students, we're going to begin chapter 2. This lesson is going to be about repeating and terminating decimals. So the learning target is on the right hand side here, more student-friendly language. It is, I can show how the decimal form of a rational number repeats eventually and convert a repeating decimal into a rational number. Now a lot of these words may sound unfamiliar, that's okay. We're going to talk about them as we go through our video here. You may also hear them later on in the chapter, so you'll hear them a lot and you'll kind of understand what they are. So make sure you write your learning target down in your notes. Also remember that you can always go back and rewind if you need to listen to something again, or you can pause if you need more time to write things down. There will also be points in the video where I will say, okay, pause, you need to go complete this. All of that will be found in McGraw-Hill. It's all right on your dashboard. It's all in the same place. So as we work through the video, you'll be asked to stop and go back and then return back to Edpuzzle here. So coming right up, we are going to talk right about rational numbers. So these are numbers that we'll talk about a lot, especially in this chapter. And we'll spend a lot of time on them in some future lessons. So kind of just explaining what these sets of numbers are. You'll hear me say natural numbers, you'll hear me say whole numbers, you'll hear me say integers, which we talked about in previous chapters, and rational numbers. So rational numbers, what we're focusing on today, those numbers are written as, can be written as fractions. So they may be repeating decimals, they could be exact decimals, but they can always be written as a fraction or a ratio, which is where that term rational comes from. So again, we'll spend more time on that later on in the chapter, but just to explain what those are. So you'll have two different types of decimals today, terminating and repeating decimals. So repeating decimals are ones, as the name sounds, repeat forever. So it could be one digit that repeats, it could be multiple digits. As you can see there on my example here, I have 0.83 repeating. And so I have that little bar over the point or the 3 in 0.83 because that is the digit that repeats forever. Now, if the decimal just stops, let's say it's an exact decimal like 0.25 or 0.875 or whatever the decimal may be, if it ends or terminates, that is a terminating decimal. If you'd like a walkthrough video, I've also assigned this so you have access to it. It's got some interactive practice on it as well. If you want to practice understanding the difference between the two, you can go ahead and jump on there. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going. We're going to jump right into writing fractions as decimals. Now, my illustration here is going to kind of show you how to do it by hand. Now, we all have access to calculators in my classroom, which is fine. I'm not going to deprive you of that. But the importance of me showing you how to do it by hand, one, it reviews long division, which is cool. And it's a good understanding about how the decimal kind of appears rather than just seeing a random number and writing it down. So I'm looking at the term 5/8 here. So you'll want to essentially write this question in your notes. We're going to answer it together. And then you'll have a couple other examples you can add to your notes here in a little bit. So I'm going to take time to write that down. Pause if you need to, and I'm going to keep going. So we got 5/8. Whoops, hold on. 5/8, 5/8. Thanks for waiting. You guys are cool. So here's my illustration. As I mentioned, it is walking through how to do it by hand. So the term on the top, the numerator, is always going to go underneath the division sign here. And the term on the bottom, the denominator, is always going on the outside of the division sign here. So it's been such a long time since we've done long division. It's kind of nice to see it again. So if I did this by hand, I would add my decimal point and start filling in digits about how many times can 8 go into this digit and this digit and this digit. And I end up getting 0.625. I do that by hand. And you can also check that on your calculator. You can type it in 5 divided by 8, and you'll get that decimal 0.625. So definitely add this answer to your notes. So since this decimal ends or terminates, that is why we call it a terminating decimal. So next up, this is where I'm going to have you pause the video and go check out the extra practice that I've assigned to you. So I want you to practice writing the fraction as a decimal. Now again, if it's as simple as typing in the calculator, that's fine, but I do want to make sure that you're understanding what the difference is between terminating and repeating. So go ahead and pause the video, check out your dashboard, and complete this extra example of writing fractions as decimals. So next, you can also write mixed numbers as decimals. Now, mixed numbers are still kind of like fractions. I decided to go through this because it's always good to be able to convert mixed numbers into fractions bigger than 1. And because of that, we're going to be using fractions bigger than 1 for most of the year going forward. So it's good to know how to convert those if needed. So again, write this as your question in your notes, and we'll answer it together. So you need to pause, go ahead, otherwise I'm going to keep going. So if you were like me and had Mr. Nichols for math, he introduced the Nichols checkmark in order to change mixed numbers into fractions. So that was when we took the big number on the outside, we multiplied it by its denominator on the bottom, and then we added the number on the top. A little check mark there. So if I do -1 times 3 is -3 plus 2 more makes -5. So that is my fraction I'm going to be working with here. So then the process is the same. I'm just typing in -5 divided by 3, and I get my answer here of 1.6 repeating. Now I do want to clarify, so make sure you're listening, please. On your calculators, you may see it say 1.6, quite a few sixes, and then it ends with a 7. That does not mean it terminates. Your calculators cannot go on forever, obviously, so it has to round. So it's rounded that last digit to 7. However, the 6 does repeat forever. So in this case, it's going to be 1.6 repeating. So since it repeats forever, it doesn't terminate, it doesn't stop. That is why it's called a repeating decimal. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to pause the video. You're going to go into your dashboard, check out the extra example on McGraw-Hill for writing mixed numbers as decimals, and you're going to enter your answers there. Your number may be different than mine, but again, it's just important for me to see that you can type this in your calculator and determine the difference between the two. Okay, got a couple more slides here. So we also have to be able to turn decimals into fractions. So I have a repeating decimal here. I've got 0.5 repeating. Now, the McGraw-Hill goes into very detailed and kind of explaining why this works, how to turn this into a fraction. I'm going to simplify it for you and just tell you that if you have a repeating decimal, you're going to take the decimal that repeats. It could be more than one. So say it was like 0.54. You could take them both if they both repeat. So I'm taking this repeating decimal and putting it on the top of my fraction. And then the repeating decimals are always over 9. Again, if you want to see more of why it's always over 9, it does have a very good example of how that happens. It's kind of hard to write with a keypad or a mouse pad here. So I'm putting that over 9. So if I have, for example, 0.47 repeating, okay. Since this is a bigger number, I obviously can't put it over 9. It won't quite be the same. But it's going to be over, so I'm going to take my 47, and it's going to be over the same number of 9s as the number of digits on the top. So if I have 47, it's now going to be over, or 0.47, I'm sorry, it's going to be over 99. Getting pretty good at this. And the same thing would happen if I had like 0.123 repeating. It would be 123 over 999. Again, if you want to see how and why that works, there's a really great example on some of your assignments there. But if we're going to keep that simple, I'll stay there, and we will, oops, reset. I want it gone. There we go. Okay. I'm going to give you one more chance to pause here, check it out. Just show me that you understand what's going on here. You're going to practice writing and repeating decimals of fraction. Again, your decimal may be different than mine on the screen, but it's going to be in your assignments on McGraw-Hill. So pause and take a look there. And actually, before you head out, I will also let you know that you have an assignment for this lesson today to kind of practice all of them all together. Oops. And you will find that also in your assignments tab on McGraw-Hill. It is lesson 2.1. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Email if you need, come see me in class, whatever is easiest for you. Otherwise, I will wish you the best and see you soon. Have a great day.